Okay, perfect. All right. Okay.
I'm
All
sure.
right. So
Yeah.
okay. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry for that. Okay. So let's just go. Let's go back a bit, and I'll try and summarize. So what I said, Wenanti, is that at the genesis of your upbringing, of your growth as a man, if Koguti, you'll be fed uh, wrong knowledge, and you'll be given wrong things at the early stages of your life. You are going to carry that wrong perception and wrong knowledge about yourself, which has the ability to break you. And which of those are the things that have the potential to break you? Let me then go there, because that is where I was, right? Let's say, for example, you are told, or you just have to brave through the pain. Imagine how much pain you'll be carrying. Imagine how much pain you'll be carrying, and you have not processed the pain because you have been told that, listen, as a man, you don't cry. As a man, you don't express your emotions, the negative emotions, as it were. As a man, you don't deal with anything that has got to do with pain. At that stage of that forming, at your forming and norming stage in your life, that for me is the stages where the brokenness of a man can start to begin. Are you still, do you follow, right?
Perfect.
Excellent. So from my point of view and from my perspective and from the journey that I've traveled and that I'm still traveling, I think at that point in your life, if you really do not master that you are allowed to express your emotions and go through your emotions and be able to talk to them and talk about them as a man, but you are constantly told to not express them, it's going to break you. At some point, it's going to break you. And I think that is where I think many a men have lost it. And not because they lost it because baby fool, but it's the society, it's their upbringing that led them to be like that. It's what the parents knew, and I guess it was what they understood at the time, those who are responsible for your upbringing as a boy and as a child, you know?
Yeah.
So for me, I think that's where the foundation of this brokenness starts.
So we're saying it dates back to Obaba no Mkhulu. It's not something that starts with us. Ngoba nathi sakhuliswa with the best of their knowledge and their experience and their perception.
Correct.
Okay. So then let's look at not to dwell much on, because I think a fair amount of us we can acknowledge it's okay. It's a painful truth, kodwa abazali nalaba abadala khona laba amaphutha abafika ku khona laba phambuka khona insofar as teaching and especially with the male species in terms of emotional intelligence and awareness and consciousness and communication. Ngoba one of the things we often heard and we still do here, it's almost like a slander ukuthi ukhuluma njengomfazi, you talk like a woman, because when you actively are regular verbal, you are sidelined as umuntu who talks like a woman, whereas you would find ukuthi one is actually expressing their thoughts and their position and their emotions. The environment is not receptive because, again, typically indoor is not supposed to be very vocal. You're not supposed to talk a lot. That's something that's categorized as a trait for women. And so I think the space to even heal, noma begin that process is even trickier. Ngoba there are not a lot of men or a lot of guys or fellas that would be open to that exchange. But even with our circles of friends, if you go to one of your male counterparts and you say, "Ish Bafetu, I'm going through A, B, and C," and you have a real soul to soul conversation, they don't have the language to actually listen to Lendo Shoyo and be receptive and accommodate and then reciprocate an energy that allows you to feel safe. So I'm playing in a space of then what do we do? How do we move to make sure we break Leo cycle and kind of change the narrative, or basically make it okay for for men to communicate. Ngoba I think look, it's a fear of hey,
Sure.
ngiyasabu khuluma because then they might think ukuthi I'm A, B, and C.
Okay, so you know the direction that our conversation is now taking is a very interesting one, and it's a topic on its own. But without moving away from what you are saying, and also not deviating from the topic that you decided that we should talk about, what breaks the black boy, or who breaks the black boy, strategy communication learner that you are talking about. I like a few comments that have come through from Ufifi and Usambulo, you know, because where we started, I started when I spoke about the learnings of your youth, and they are saying that the most important thing is realizing that you have something to unlearn. So to get over that brokenness, at least maybe when we discuss a brokenness point, maybe we can also discuss how to get over it so that it can be easier for the sake of the conversation.
Yeah.
So that aspect that I spoke about, I fully agree with the comments that are coming through. But once you realize that condition that you would have learned, and I guess it's not only a condition at early age. This is a general solution for I guess fixing not only brokenness but a lot of the things that we'll get to discuss today, and many behaviors that we have picked up as we've gone along the way, is knowing that is getting to firstly a point of realizing, wait a minute, that which I am and that which I know is actually counterproductive, is counterintuitive, and it's destructive to myself, you know, and then I have to unlearn that and then try and relearn new habits which will be more beneficial for me as I go on in life. Because when I coexist with people, I'm going to give a problem or a toxic person and expect to be accepted throughout my life, you know. So that one, I guess it talks to many of the things that to how do you solve a lot of issues. It's getting to that point of understanding my problem points and how then do I fix them. So these comments that are coming in here are talking to that. But to go back to Leo Kulumayo, before we go back to brokenness, about how do we as men get to a point where we can openly discuss and get to express the emotions that we feel, right? And be able to get to talk about what we feel inside without any fear of judgment, without fearing what society is going to say, without fearing what my peers, my friends, or whoever is going to say. I think it's something that you need to learn for yourself, to know, I can't know everything. And in me not being able to know everything, I must also allow myself to be vulnerable. And I think the most important thing is identifying those that you can be vulnerable with. It's important to build yourself a circle of people, of friends, who you know, I can go there and speak whatever is on my heart. I think the biggest thing that we fear is rejection, right? Which when I approach you as the out, with that learning that we spoke about, and so forth, with that particular learning, when you go and cry, one of the first things, as any person, I suppose, not just this, is the fear of rejection for what matters to you and what you're saying, you know? So that is the one, that is, I guess, to answer your question, how do we get to the stage where we can thoroughly engage as people, as guys, you know, as thoroughly engaged as guys, to get to a point of saying it's okay to be vulnerable, it's okay to be weak, you know, it's okay to just be yourself. And
Yeah.
you know, I think that's the most important thing. That's what we need to get through, you know,
for sure,
so that we can get to that point of being able to engage at that level as a machita that you just pointed out, my brother.
Yeah. But you know, and obviously I agree entirely with the concept and the process of unlearning, because I think fundamentally we have more unlearning than learning to do. More times than not, isn't this mamezelayo, is the things that we should let go, but we don't. And so what I've seen, Nami, firsthand, is the sensitivity and the danger of encouraging or getting or having a conversation with Umuntu Lisa about unlearning certain things. Because I think it's safe to say we all know how sensitive we can be when it comes to our culture, our tradition, our history, our family. But I have conversations with male friends, and the point of, well, Bafo, maybe our fathers did wrong here. maybe the way your father taught you this wasn't it. That can be a very sensitive thing.
Very sensitive, yeah.
To accept and even entertain the way I was raised maybe was not it. Yeah, because this image of a father figure who is this supreme individual who I have so much respect and admiration for, the idea of they were wrong, no matter they misled me, is so scary to abantu abaningi, because then if you entertain that, you kind of have to entertain a lot of the things you were raised on, a lot of the things that you put your identity on are not it. And so that's like really shaky ground. So as much as I agree, in most cases I find myself in that space where I have to not even tiptoe, but I have to tap dance along those lines of, especially with the ego and the sensitivity of Lisa when they feel offended or attacked, the language of communication is not so strong. So it's very easy for someone to just shut down when they feel or sense you're coming at them in a disrespectful way, So the truth is a scary thing to deal with. Rather than just owning it, umuntu would just shut down and say, or like, you know what I mean? And then the conversation ends, but the unlearning doesn't happen. So I think that's one of the trickiest things to get through, or to bring about or encourage amongst our peers, but unlearning it's no joke.
So that we don't belabor this point, I've got some other points that I thought of about what breaks a black boy. My closing comments, Kulena, and to pick up from what Fifi is saying around the unlearning. Not enough men are desperate enough to be vulnerable men, because they will lose too many of their societal privileges. Because being a man, and I agree with her. She's right about that.
Sure. 100%.
She's very right about that, because that is exactly what I guess many men struggle to go through and to do. If I was to be weak, then I would lose my rights in this house.
Yeah.
Because I've shown my emotions. That's why I'm currently siding, but I don't want to belabor this point anymore, so that we go through the other points of the topic of the day, But all of these comments really do make sense, and thanks to everyone who's just been commenting on them. So the second thing, amongst many other things, that I think will contribute to what breaks a black boy, what breaks a black man, my brother, and this is, I guess, undealt with, is a lot of unhealed past pains. Past pains. We walk around carrying pains. Let's forget what we say we were taught when we were young, We walk around with a lot of scars, with a lot of pains, and how we respond to the pains that we are feeling as amajita differs from one to the other. We may be subjected to a similar and identical pain, but how we respond to it differs. And I'll make an example, Ndie. For example, we are telelwe by your superior.
Yeah.
One man will say, I want to go and physically revenge for myself. Another person will say, I will calculatively work my way back to get my revenge. And another person will say, this doesn't define me. I move forward,
For sure.
And another person will carry this pain and say, yo, kanti kunje, So one incident can work out in many different ways. And the one who is, I guess, befitting to today's topic is the one who takes this thing and it pains them, and they carry it and they go with it for the rest of their life. Whatever experience it is, be it in the workplace or in whatever setting of their life where they would have experienced that pain. Because it's not, I'm just making an example in Espali, because not everyone has that experience. It can be in relationship, in romantic relationships, where their breaking comes in. It can be in friendships, we can break our friends, it can be your parents speaking things that hurt you, and that pain lies within you, and if it's not healed, it can then lead you to become a broken person, It can break you to a point that you end up, at least from my perspective, you end up, depending how you respond to it, you know, when a similar pain or something that you are still carrying shows itself, you now start interpreting yonke through the eyes of that experience.
Yeah, through bruised lens. Yeah, it's true.
Through bruised lenses, you know, and that is brokenness, because you are now combining izinto ezingahlangani. You know, you are looking at things through a broken lens because of your experience, you know. So those unhealed past pains, which were unprocessed, maybe you didn't even have an opportunity to discuss your pain with the person who hurt you, you know. And then that person, and then you now go and sometimes you can even replicate that pain and inflict the same pain on other people that you felt, because you didn't have the opportunity to discuss that pain or to heal through that pain, or that person affords you the privilege to discuss it, you know. Yes, forgiveness is for yourself, it's not for the other person. But the truth of the matter is, and I know I've been pained, I've carried certain pains that I should have let go of a long time ago, you know, because as much as hey, I've let this go, I understand. But the truth of the matter is, at times you want that particular person to come back to you and engage you about it, you know, so that you can be able to get over that brokenness or the effects of that pain on you. Because the truth of the matter is that and it breaks you. So how then you respond to those unhealed past pains? Sometimes you cannot even be held responsible for it, but that in itself leads to the brokenness of a man, from my experience and my perspective.
That's true, Ngoba. And an element that I think also adds to this whole thing of brokenness is, and I always said, and for disclaimer, I'm not turning men into victims and saying what's in, but I think a lot of us, a lot of fellas, a lot of men, a lot of boys walk around with the weight of what they think or they feel they are supposed to be and who they actually are. There's almost a subtle, constant conflict between an idea that you're supposed to maintain just by virtue of being a black man, and then your individual character, whether whatever your characteristics may be. So I think existing and moving in an environment where you don't feel comfortable to express lezi zinto zakho, that kind of, it extends to lendo show, you kind of exert that same pain that you feel onto other people, because you feel when you are deprived of a space to speak. So why would the next person be given a space to speak? Because now I can't speak about my pain, so neither should you. And so when one of my guys comes to me and says, hey, Ndie, I'm dealing with A, B, and C, because I was never afforded the environment to say I'm dealing with A, B, and C, I'd turn to him and say, Windot, man up, stick it up. Like, we all have our fair share of ish, so deal with it. So then I close off to the next person, and so I repeat the cycle of brokenness. And my concern comes in when, and I always say this, we're humans, we're spiritual beings. So anything that happens, you feel it, you experience it, you see it, you hear it. You can deny yourself of outlets, but it doesn't change the fact that you experienced it. And I think we've never had enough outlets to express and articulate and deal with these emotions and these thoughts and these fears and these worries and so on and so forth. And so what happens now is, when you don't have a healthy outlet, you find an unhealthy one. So because you can't have an honest conversation with umuntu, rather let me just numb it for a few hours with ibhodlela. Let me smoke, take a couple of joints to kind of at least escape it for a minute, and then I'll deal with it later. Or I'm so close to exploding, because it's an overwhelming thing to carry all of these things, that when someone comes and steps on my shoes, because I was already on the edge. So all it takes is look at me wrong, and then it's over. You know, even
Sure.
with my partner, if she says something that I'm already on the edge. So if she says something that I even is almost a trigger to these traumas and these internal unrests, I'm attacking. I'm already on defense for no apparent reason. What? Because I've been carrying a lot this baggage or this weight for so long. All it takes is a small prick, and then it's an explosion. So I worry because I'm outlets, my environments, our mining where men can actually communicate and feel safe to communicate, and so that brokenness, it's almost like we protect it, we keep it, and then say you'll sell like it to our sons and our associates and peers and so on and so forth. So I look at it and I worry because the outlets that we're using now are not it.
Look, what you are saying when Ndie, I fully agree with. I fully agree with, and it's the absence, I guess, of those avenues and those spaces and those places that we need. It's the absence of them that lead us, you know, to do that. I guess to those explosions and to the behaviors that we end up adopting, but we were not allowed. And when you started with the point that you are raising now, somehow you went into my third point about what is it that breaks us, you know. And that point that I was going to raise is obviously unmet expectations or peer pressure, you know, from what your peers would have said. It could be both ways: personal unmet expectations and pressure from peers, you know. And I could even extend it, although it was not in my thoughts at the time, but I can see it now. Even pressure from your family as well, you know. So it could be personal pressure, your pressure, and the pressure from your friends, your associates, etc. Where from yourself you say, at this point I should be here, and because I'm failing to get there, it breaks me. It breaks me because I'm unable to get there, because you're not able to process the reality of your life. Everything that surrounds your life, okay, this is where it is, this is where things are, and I must adapt so that I can be able, accept first of all that this is where I am, and know that I'm moving from this base to go to where I want to go. And therefore the failure to realize where you are, and when you at another level or at another place, or wishing that everything was different, it can break you, because the disjuncture between the reality and the figment of your mind or of your imagination, as it were, it will just cripple you. You know, it will just cripple you. So
Yeah.
so that pressure, that thing breaks you. That's if I can just coin a term, manje, you know, I'll say in Kambe, it's self-created brokenness, you know, because you are the one who is in control of this. And we see that quite a lot. We see that quite a lot, you know, where abantu try and it just breaks them. Whereas if you were to work from where you are and try and go forward, you know, things will be better. But the ones that I had prepared was more like peer pressure, you know, that in its own can also break you. You know, for an example, I as a guy at my age, you know, let's say at my age, at whatever that society has said and where my friends are, bashatile, let's say angakashadi, banengane ngakabi nengane, banemizi mina ngisahlala emqashweni, you know, all of those pressures in and of themselves, if you belong to a group of men, the ones that we were discussing earlier on, who maybe are not, you cannot have the discussions that we need to have as men, and you cannot be true and be yourself around them. And because of that pressure that comes from your peers, that on its own can break you. Sometimes umuntu uhleli ecrowdini yama out, ne? Uhleli ecrowdini yama out, and he wishes he was like them, but he sees, look, my life is not there, and we're not in the same place.
Yeah.
But because I'm now afraid to because I know good scheme sisebenza kanjani. And because of your fear of you are now in a place that is hurting you. You know, you are being hurt all the time, but you can't get out of it. And you stay there. And then that breaks you as well.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that is self-inflicted breakage as well, you know, because when we are born, you can see, you know, but I've been in circles of friends. I've seen friends who behaved like that, you know. We are forced, man, you know, it's really not happening. But there's for some disingenuous reason, they decide to just stick it out, you know, and then you question, but why would you
Why
not
are you
do this
still
to
there?
yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah, why are you doing this to yourself? And because they start being negative about everything else. And that they are not able to get to. Yeah, it just breaks them down, you know. So I think as men we need to have that honest conversation about that, you know, about the circles of friends we keep, the pressures that come from there, etc. Because unmanaged and undealt with is okawata leon to prawa.
And it's almost a phenomenon. More, but exactly let me show you would see a lot of guys would associate with Ama circles that they don't fully believe in, that they don't fully enjoy and really grow and benefit from God. That inclusion is almost like a drug. And what I've realized is in a lot of these spaces, a lot of these guys, if not all of them, all are not really happy. God, it's a group think. So because Song is line, we're all here. And so when an extra or an outsider comes in and says, "Oh, okay, I don't want to do what you guys are doing," then you would even start seeing one of them peeling away and two of them peeling away, then moving, and then you would question Uti, but you were sitting here and you were partaking in this thing all along. But what you would find is I'm going to the courage of daring to stand for something in the face of okay,
Sure.
all of you guys are saying you are going left. Me now, based on my character and my values and my convictions, I'm gonna go right. It's cool, Hambani, there's no hard feelings, but I can't play that game. And so I see a lot of that lacking. A lot of guys don't have that moral backbone or a solid code of principles and values where you say we're friends, but I don't play with this. I can't partake in this, and I'm going to stand aside. Rather, it's more of a sheep or followers mentality where we play along just so we can keep our subscription to, as Ufifi was saying, the privilege of being a man and the access of having a group of friends, whatever your gauge is, whether these are the cool guys, these are the guys with the nice cars, these are the guys with the money, whatever the instance is. And ikonseniam is locals, aban beslisa, or that's why I'm even reluctant to say I'm a daughter, because it's hard for me to reconcile with in daughter and then Leon. Yeah, because like in characteristic so to call it undot is kind of weird for me. But that energy of indaughter that stands for something, even if it's around an unfamiliar environment or people that you don't necessarily know, but having a principle Uguti, for instance, you'll never raise your hand to a woman in my presence, whether ngiyakwazi or angwazi, whether I know her or I don't know her. There's just certain things that will not happen in my presence. End of story. So now we're in a space where, and I guess because we're broken, umuntu wesilisa can see an injustice and hey, indaba zabo mfethu.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, you know.
So you know, to get to the third one, and before I throw my last point, which I think is the most important one, and we don't discuss it as men hard enough. This is the second last one, you know, in the three that I outlined, where I said it's self-pressure, it's peer pressure, and one other element that can break a man, can break a boy, is family pressure. You know, family pressure that can break a man. Similar pressures to what your friends may put on you, but ubabwaka and maybe the expectation from umalume umawako even, hey ushata nini, hey uyithola nini ngane, hey wenza nini in, hey uphuma nini ekhaya, hey all of these things, I think, as minute or as silly as it may sound, but the truth is that those things can really damage a person. You know, they can really break a man. All of those things, and even not just, and I'll say the flip side of it. Ndie, hear this one out. Even when they encourage you to do things that are against your own beliefs, that can also break you, because if you are conflicted to say, do I disagree with my parent because of what I stand for, or do I do what they say? You know, that point of disagreement where you find people doing things that that can break you.
No, for sure. I'm a relationships abaning. And I always say this. We're moving in a space where umuntu wesilisa gets married for the woman, not because he wants to get married. Because umuntu wesifazane angithi ufuna security. Umedem ufuna real. So ngishadela kuze ezoba grand. And once I'm within that union of marriage, then I go out and I do what pleasures me. I have my side chicks. I'm always out with my friends and so on and so forth. So a lot of the things we do, we feel what we're doing them for our families, we're doing them for the women, but then they don't really bring us joy or bring us peace. So it's almost as if you're kind of paying a debt. So philela bantu, and then musuba philele, then you find loopholes, or whenever you can, you sneak out and do whatever it is that you want to do and whatever makes you happy. So I'm speaking to that pressure of what you're saying, Uti, even from Ifenel, like, okay,
yeah, sure,
you'll get married just to get the family off your back, and then you dishonor the sanctity of marriage. You know, you abuse your wife, you disrespect your wife, because that you weren't really there, but the pressure that was around you saying you should get married, then you're like, okay, sharp, I'm gonna get married because I'm 32. I'm gonna have a child because I'm 33. I don't really want a child, but this is what's happening societally. Like, men my age have kids, they have wives, they are, so now I'm gonna play along, and then you fail to honor or maintain the standard of being in that environment because mentally and spiritually you weren't there. It was the pressure that, you know, that was pushing you. So brokenness nako, and that's another form of, no.
I like the comment that Ufifi once again is throwing here. Ufifi Uti, she's laughing my S off, I suppose. That's what it means. These are the sweet fruits of patriarchy, because all of these things, and she's right, some of these patriarchal tendencies have now come back to bite us, you know, and that's the truth. And this is where then the courage of your own personal conviction should then come into play to say, even with all of these things said and all of the things that are happening, I'm not going to take part in this, and I'm going to carve out my own way, so that you don't end up in a path of brokenness or in a path where you're just going to be but without ignoring the point of as Zoom chats. And I like this point, because we are Kunmela Madota, where this person says, I feel that we give too much expectation to men at large for them to change and to disengage in these behaviors as the environment accommodates this output of manhood. So to expect men to change it, the environment expects it, is putting too much pressure on men. You know, Uti, we must seek to change the society or change the environment beyond changing the individuals. Because when you do, and you're right, I agree with this point, because when you do what society deems you no, I'm not going towards that. And this is exactly what this comment is saying, which I guess sums it all up to say that, look, when you go against what people are saying, then as a man. But my last point, so that we don't go more than an hour. I mean, people have been kind with us. Ndie, my last point, and you touched on it, on the element of pressure, yabazali, and family pressures and getting into relationships. But what can potentially break a man? And this is a truth that I don't think many men have. And if they do have it, they really look for that one person who they will engage with, who they can trust with this wasabi judgment. And this one, I think, is a very sensitive one for many men. what can break men is the kind of relationships that they end up being in, you know, especially when it gets to that extreme level of being married, excuse me, you know. That, I think you spoke about the sanctity of marriage. You spoke about the sanctity of marriage. And let's just say you are in that environment, and how we both see this this union that we are in, if we don't see it in the same way, you know, I mean, we are different people. That's a given, you know, we can never see everything in the same way. But there are certain fundamentals, and I don't speak as a married man, but I understand relationships, I've been around, you know. But if we don't see things in the same way in this union where we have decided, which as in, I'm going to give myself to you in a romantic or in a romantic kind of relationship, you know, which I guess grows into marriage. And marriage is not just romantic, but it has many other elements to it. But in that bigger element of marriage, that space for me, Ndie, you know, where I sit right now, I think that that space has broken women. I'm not going to say women have not been broken from marriages. I will not say that. But also, it has also broken many men. It has also broken many men, you know. It has broken them kakulu, that you know, you end up losing yourself. You know, I mean, I speak about it from a point of a relationship, not being married. I can only imagine if they have experienced the emotions I've gone through, you know, and easy for me just to leave. How much more if someone is subjected to an environment like that, which they are failing to correct, but they're still forced to stay in it? What does that do to that man?
Psychologically, Nakhona, that's a weight.
It's a weight that I can't speak about the heaviness of that weight in marriage. I can just only talk to it from a relationship, but I can only imagine what it can do in a marriage. But I was speaking about it broadly in a relationship sense, you know, which that can break you, you know. I mean, the further the relationship leads to marriage. So what happens in that stage when you are there, you know?
But we're performing even in our relationships.
So
even as a man, I'm performing in front of my woman. But she can't see all of me. I have to maintain an image of masculinity. I have to maintain an image of wisdom. I have to maintain an image of strength. So if she's crying and saying she doesn't know what to do, I can't say I don't know what to do. I have to be the voice. I have to be that individual. So now we exclude and we deny our partners access to see us out of fear of how they may perceive us if they were to see all of our flaws and all of our shortcomings. And so we can't afford for them to see us, see be vulnerable, no matter see pants. And so that's why I say we perform even in our relationships, which nakhona is a strain, because it's wild to me. You can be with umuntu and you don't confide in them. Like you're having life problems, but uhambe yokhuluma namachita will not with the mate. So that whole concept has always bewildered me. But you've got a person ending, someone that you've committed to, and I can be on that, but you can't go to her and tell her A, B, and C happened, or blah blah blah, and you would sooner go to the guys and have that conversation with them. So that for me was also one of those moments where I realized, oh, so even Naguma relationships, we're not really present. We're kind of, again, because of the pressures or just the desire to be in a relationship because that's what's happening around us. We're playing the game, but we're not fully present in these things that we're doing. And I think that also over time plants a seed of brokenness, of confusion, of lack of knowledge of self. Nakhona, it's just a weird thing, but as you were saying, that pressure of being in a relationship, that it doesn't even fulfill you.
It doesn't fulfill you.
It doesn't fulfill you.
And this is, I like what Fifi has said. Fifi, I saw your earlier comment, which I can't link it to where we were in the discussion, but I can link this one. La article, when she speaks about performance, about some performance, the performance is always the problem because it's not maintainable, at least not consistently so.
Yeah.
You know, so that performance, we are katala, we are born. We are katala, you know. So the element of performing just to try and maintain shit together. I think one needs to really get over it. But I just want to go back to exactly how I wanted to drive this point of relationships home. You know, from my side, Ndie, to say, and the importance of you will never know. I mean, it's finder, I guess. Some would say you must pray for a partner. Some will say you can feel it. Some will say many things about finding that partner to build that relationship with, you know, for your future and ultimately into marriage. And as the wedding vows say, till death do us part, you know, not murder, but death, you know. What I was saying is, when I say that these relationships in and of themselves can lead to a brokenness, you know, the brokenness of both a man and a woman, because it does not only kill, it does not only break men. I'm cognizant of that. Many women have been broken by a machita, you know, many women have been broken by a machita. And I'll be the first to admit that I've broken women as well, you know, and those that I remembered, I went and I had a conversation with, I apologized, I explained my side, I did do that. I broke them, you know, so I'm cognizant of that fact. But at this point, I'm standing on the side of I'm out, right? To say that, look, it's very important. I don't know how possible it is, but to find that person who, you know, there's no guarantees in life, but who, you know, will look after you, or not good, it's their job to look after you, but where you'll understand one another, where you can build each other, and they don't break you, and you also don't break them, because it's not one-sided, you know. So the brokenness is quite rife in that particular space, and that's what I was saying when I said in relationships, it is a fertile ground for brokenness, for the breaking of one another, and that's where another space where men can find themselves badly bruised and badly broken, you know. For many reasons, we've discussed many of them here, you know, and the comments just keep coming in, you know, from the people about this. But that is where I was going, Mailan and Ndie, with the relationship aspects of the brokenness in men, you know, from the relationship aspect. Yeah.
Now I hear you, and Ufifi saying, and when we start demanding the performance we were introduced to, then we seem like we're being ungrateful partners. Yeah.
She's right. He's right. He's right.
Yeah. Like I don't even. It is. Yeah. It's like that. But I think that's and like I'm really amped and I'm really inspired and driven by this conversation. Well, but I think the take home for me is highlighting the importance for us. Not because I don't think we'll get all men at the same time, and I don't think we're supposed to. I think Leo Bijan and that gets it. It's on us to kind of create, whether we call it a small community or whatever it is, but at least start creating that reference so that these visuals or these figures of men that are refusing to maintain this cycle of brokenness, that are refusing to succumb to these flawed ideologies of what a man is supposed to be, is seen. I think it's important for us, laba bayibonayo, to speak it. Yes, the conversation is important, but parallel to the conversation, actionable items for us to live in a way where even if umuntu ongakwazi ekwazi ukubona, but as umfowethu Nqobani ngazi ukuthi he moves different. There's something about that man's energy that I can't put my finger on it, but it's not the same as. So let me figure that out, and then umuntu abone ukuthi yazini this is actually possible and more than possible oh, this is how you can carry out this life, or I've seen him move in these ways, and so I know it exists, at least the alternative. But yeah, but basically, it's local, I think the importance of, because I think we all know the power and the importance of visuals and having references, like real life references of indoor ethize, because even as boys we grew up having abantu that we modeled our behavior after, whether it was
Sure.
or malume or baba omncane or baba, but we saw certain figures, certain male figures that we looked up to, and we took traits from them. So I think then the onus is now on us to move with that consciousness of khona intwana ebuka mina and is looking for guidance in the midst of his confusion. So just at least, even if ungamazi umuntu on a personal level, but at least moving in a certain way so that you can afford the next person that opportunity of, oh, so it is possible to be emotionally open and present and still be respected as a man. It's okay to communicate my inner truth and still have credibility when I speak or when I move, and the respect and love of my my peers. It is possible, because we came up, we didn't know that. We didn't know what you could do that. We didn't know what you can be emotionally present and still be indoor dematote. We didn't know what you can cry and people would still look at you as you are. We thought that took away from masculinity.
Yeah.
We thought that stripped us of who we are.
I think, Ndie, my closing comments, and just to sum up all that which we have said, and you said it just before we got cut in the previous video, my brother, when you said that this conversation is not conclusive. It cannot encompass all the reasons why the black boy is broken. And I think that was not the intention of having this conversation, but it was just to start, to say that what is it that as men and as brothers we can and speak about. And that's why I was quite conscious to say that let's not say who broke the black boy, but what is it that broke the black boy, So my closing comments then in that regard is to say, indeed, for those of us who have come to a point of I guess realizing the importance of trying to unbreak yourself, or at least trying to deal with the things that have broken you, because in dealing with them, I guess the breaking as well gets healed. And we should be good models, as you are saying, Guti, to be seen to be one who is being able to deal with those issues. That's a good thing. That's the first thing. But more importantly, is to also try not so much to be a model for people, but to say, how then do I make sure that I do not find myself at that place again? And how do I make sure that I'm able to be that outlet that I need, that other people need, as my close circles, my friends, so that they can be liberated from their brokenness, But and more importantly, how can I strike the balance? You put it very nicely without taking away from your words. How do I strike the balance? The balance of still being a strong man, by the definition of, I guess, the world strong, but also being able to be who you are, being emotionally vulnerable, being yourself and being everything, and trusting that those that you open up to and that you be yourself to will see and understand where you come from. And even if they don't see it, you don't stop who you are, because it's who you are, because you're not doing it for them, and have the courage then to walk away from those things that really don't work anymore. So that's I guess are my closing remarks, yes, I think that's it. Just find yourself and make sure that you work on yourself and get yourself sorted, and and try and trust that those around you. But even if they don't, I'm going to repeat this again. Even if they fail to understand you, it's free. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. So those were my closing comments, my brother. And
no,
Lenkuluma, I think it can go on for a long time.
no, we can
The
go
appetite
until
is there.
sunrise. Yeah, no, with these we could go on and on and on and on, but ongapheli kuyahlola. And
Yeah.
Ufifi, she has a closing comment as well. We need to move away from who and what broke black men. How do we comfortably move past the conditioning in a way that will not make them feel emasculated?
Thank you. You understand. Fifi angwazi kodwa ngena la.
I don't. Yes, that last line, because I think that's the constant fear of, I'm scared to, because it will emasculate me.
Emasculate me, yeah.
Because that fear is top tier and for a lot of fellas. So that's a very big gate. God, I don't want to open that flood because we'll so if we dare. But my king, thank you, man. Thank you for his cards. Thank you for the insight, the perspective. Thank you for the energy, Nakon, because again, one can sit in one's own space. I'd want to do this, nani, but if the environment around you is not conducive and is not accommodating, so I think it's important to connect, and and have the conversations, and at least sikhuthaza ukuthi ndoda wethu sikhona nathi, and
Sure.
we're doing these things.
But before we are no more, on my side as well, thank you, my brother. There's some talks, maybe we should have more of such conversations. I think we can discuss it and see if we can have more of them and just explore them from a man's perspective, things that will liberate Amadot, because this is just but one element of it. There are many other things, the emasculation, there are many other things that we can talk about. So I think let's engage off air and let's see what we can do going forward. And I'm game for such conversations.
Appreciate you, King.
Okay.
We'll come back to we'll keep the conversation alive.
All right.
How?